we got to the last day of Sukkot. The last day of Sukkot is a little bit complicated because it's not Sukkot at all. It's got a different name. It's called Shmini Atzeret. Here in the land of Israel, it's called Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah are celebrated together because we only commemorate one day. Outside of Israel, it's two separate days. So Shmini Atzeret is one day and Simchat Torah is a different day. The following day, and we'll take a look and see what the two of them are, and we'll try to work things out a little bit. First of all, where does Shmini Atzeret come from? So the Torah tells us that after having celebrated 7 days of Sukkot, we have to celebrate a day of Shmini Atzeret. There's a very beautiful Gemara. The Gemara says like this, what is the function of Shmini Atzeret? So it says that God tells the Jewish people that you came to celebrate with me in Yerushalayim, in the temple, over Sukkot. He says, "Kasheli predaschem." He says, it's difficult for me to part from you. I don't want you to go. So I want you to stay behind for another day. And we're going to spend that day in, intimate, just me and you. And, we're going to spend the day joining together, and hopefully that's going to take us out into the rest of the, into the beginning of the winter. It's going to give us that elevation that's going to allow us to retain that relationship with God. What makes Shmini Atzeret a rather interesting festival is that, Sukkot is a festival that's absolutely chock-a-block full of mitzvah, like we spoke about. So you've got to live in the sukkah, you eat in the sukkah, you drink and you sleep in the sukkah, you have the arba minim, you have the 4 species. And yet when it comes to Shmini Atzeret, there really isn't anything to do. It's as if a Kodesh Baruch Hu is saying, look, we've had this great big hustle and bustle of Sukkot, right? A great big party that's been going on for the last 7 days. But what I want now is a little bit of quality time to spend together with you. And it's a day that we join together. There's davening. We don't use the arba minim. We don't spend time in the sukkah. We go back into the house. And Shmini Atzeret itself is a truth is. I'm loath to use the word, but I'm going to anyway. Shmini Atzeret is a very quiet Yomtov, especially when you are outside of Israel and it's Shmini Atzeret by itself. You go to Shul, there's a davening, Yomtov davening that takes place over there, the regular Yomtov davening. So in the morning there's Shacharit, there's Hallel, there's Kriyat Torah, there's also Yearskor, which we'll talk about in a moment, and then there's Musaf. Right, and regular sort of Yom Tov davening, you go home and you have a meal. What is interesting is that when you come to light the Yom Tov candles on Shmini Atzeret night, so you make the bracha Shechianu. Again, whoever's making, if it's your mother, if it's your wife, the bracha Shechianu is recited, which is interesting because on Pesach, on the last day of Pesach, when we light the Yom Tov candles, we don't make a bracha Shechianu, because the last day of Pesach is considered to be an integral part of Pesach itself, which means that the Shechianu blessing was made on the first day of Pesach, and you don't need to make another bracha. However, because Shmini Atzeret is considered to be its own Yom Tov, so you have to make a Shechianu when you come to light the Shabbos candles, and the person making Kiddush will make Shechianu as well on Shmini Atzeret night. Over Kiddush as well, yeah. So that's already our proof that Shmini Atzeret is not the same as Sukkot. It's its own separate entity. Let's talk about Yearskor, right? Even though we'll see, Yearskor is a prayer that is recited for people that have passed away. It's recited on a few occasions during the year. It's recited on Yom Kippur. It's recited on the last day of Sukkot. It's recited on the last day of Pesach as well. It's recited on Shavuot. It's a special prayer that's recited. There's one prayer for somebody who's lost a parent. There's another prayer, a similar prayer, but in the feminine, if a person's lost a father or if they've lost a mother. If you've lost, other family relatives. The custom is that when Yearskor is recited, so people whose parents are still alive leave the shul. They go out, they step outside for a little bit. I heard that in Gur, in the Bere Shit in Gur, which is one of the largest, I think it is the largest Chassidut here in Israel. So they have the most enormous amount of people that come to daven, thousands of people coming together. And if you're going to send all the people whose parents are still alive, you're going to send them out, it's going to take forever until they go out, until they come in. So I heard that when he gets to Yearskor, the Rebbe stands up, goes like this, and all the people who haven't lost any parents just turn around and face the back, and they allow everybody else to recite the Yearskor prayers that are recited. I don't know, I've never been there, but that's what I heard happens.
In my community, everyone who hasn't lost a parent, in my community, everyone who hasn't lost a parent just walks out of the shul.
Right. Yeah. That's a standard procedure. For many years in the shul that I davened in, I've been davening in the same shul for the last 20-something years. So, you can imagine that 20-something years ago, most people left the shul, and only a few people stayed in. But over the space of time, which is, Darkei Shel Olam, people get older and people pass away. So there are more people staying inside the shul for the Yearskor services. One of the things that's recited inside of the Yearskor services is that the person makes a commitment. Again, he should make it bli neder, right? A non-committal commitment. That he's going to give tzedakah, he's going to give some charity in memory of the person who's passed away. That's about it. Why do we say these things? So the answer that is given is because because Yomtov is considered to be a time when the neshama, the soul, is in a sort of like a more vulnerable state, and the more prayers that are offered up, the better it's going to be for the soul of the deceased. There's some interesting questions about what one does the first year that when somebody's in mourning, whether they're supposed to recite the Yearskor prayer, whether they're not supposed to recite the Yearskor prayer. The accepted custom is not to. However, if it's going to make the person feel good and it's going to help them get through the year and to be a little less, a little less pained by the loss, then for sure, if they want to, they should stay in, and nobody should tell the person anything. It's it's really not the worst thing that somebody is going to do.
That's really weird. You can say it for grandmother.
You could say it for grandparents. Again,
for a sister, a brother,
a sibling. There's a if a person has living parents, then they shouldn't be saying anything. Right?
Even if you don't have a grandmother.
Even if grandparents have been lost, but nevertheless, if you've got living parents, then you shouldn't say anything. You should go out together with everybody else. In Mitzvah Hashem, for those of you that have parents, in Mitzvah Hashem, you should be able to cherish and nurture your relationship with your parents for many, many years to come, and you can be one of the few people who have to go out of the shul and not have to stay in the shul when it comes to Yearskor Mitzvah Hashem. That's Shmini Atzeret. Now let's look at Simchat Torah, because Simchat Torah is a day, again, like I said, over here, the 2 days are combined together with each other, which makes Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah is a very interesting emotional roller coaster. You've got the very serious dimension of Shmini Atzeret, and you've got the very joyous dimension of Simchat Torah. So what happens on Simchat Torah? So on Shmini Atzeret at night, after the end of davening, they then take out the Sefer Torah from the Aron Kodesh, and a lot of dancing takes place. There are 7 times that the dancing rounds go around the bimah. Each one is called a hakafah, so you've got 7 of these going around. Sometimes they're longer, sometimes they're shorter. It depends on what kind of shul you're davening in. Depends on how much energy and enthusiasm everybody has got. Simchat Torah is probably the longest day of the year, I reckon. There's an awful lot of davening going on, an awful lot of dancing going on, an awful lot of singing. It's a lot of fun. The kids have a blast. It's a time to be nice to children. I think I ought to warn you about this now. Just if you can muster up the energy and the ability to be nice to children one day a year, Simchat Torah is probably the day to do it. Again, what are we celebrating? Well, we are celebrating the end of the reading of the Torah. It's going to come to its final moment.
Why do we have the same celebration? Why do we have the same celebration when we receive the Torah the second time, the same month the second time? Why do we have the same celebration as we did when we received it the first time?
Wait, hold on a second. You're referring to what?
When we received the Ten Commandments the first time.
Yeah.
Why didn't we have the same celebration as we did when we?
So the emphasis is like this: we don't have a celebration. Let's put things into chronological order. On Shavuot, God gave us the Ten Commandments verbally, right, orally. Only later did Moshe go up Har Sinai and receive. He stayed there for 40 days and 40 nights and received the first Luchos Habris, right, the first tablets of stone, which he brought down on the 17th of Tammuz, in the summer. Now, if you're familiar, right, with what happened, he came down. Of course, they were busy worshipping the golden calf, and the tablets of stone were smashed. And then there was another 40-day period that he went up in order to get some kind of forgiveness from God for what the Jewish people had done. And then there was another 40 period that he went up in order to receive the second set of tablets, which came down on Yom Kippur on the 10th of Tishrei. Right, which means that we're talking about there was no celebrations per se for receiving the Ten Commandments written, the tablets of stone. What we do have is a celebration on Shavuot of receiving the Torah. Now, Simchat Torah, we spoke about that the other day, right? I think I told you the famous parable of the person who gets married to somebody, and he's not aware of who he's marrying, and then afterwards he wants to make another wedding celebration because he's so appreciative of how wonderful his bride is. So the Simchat Torah is not connected to the Torah being given to the Jewish people. Simchat Torah is a commemoration, really, of something else altogether. What are we commemorating on Simchat Torah? We're commemorating the order of reading the Parshiot, of reading the Torah portions. We come to the end and we begin again, right? So we get to the end of V'zos HaBracha, we read V'zos HaBracha, get to the end of the Torah, we say Chazak, Chazak, and then we begin the reading of Bere Shit. The cycle begins all over again. What is going to happen on Shmini Atzeres Simchat Torah night is that the Sefer Torah, after we've danced with them, they're put back into the Aron Kodesh. One Sefer Torah is taken out, and it's read from. It's very rare. We don't normally read from the Sefer Torah at night. However, on Simchat Torah night, we read from the Sefer Torah. We read from V'zos HaBracha. We only read what is normally read. The first few verses, enough to call up 3 people. The Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. And after having done that, the Sefer Torah is put back, and davening comes to an end, and then you go home and you have your Yomtov Suda, you have your meal, you make Kiddush, you eat the Suda, you sing songs, you have a wonderful time, you tell over Divrei Torah, and that's the end of Simchat Torah night. In the morning, what is going to take place, again, in most shuls, what happens is that there's a whole lot of things that have to be taken care of over here on Simchat Torah in the morning. First of all, you've got davening. You daven, you recite Hallel. After Hallel, then you've got
Both Shemini Esrei, you say Shemini Atzeres, or there's no
Shmini Chag Atzeres Hazeh. Yeah, on both days. There's no mention of Simchat Torah.
Right.
I tell you the truth. I'm not 100% sure when Simchat Torah became its own individual Yomtov. I'll tell you why, because there were two different. Bless you. There were two different customs with regards to reading the Torah. In Bavel, in Babylonia, they read the Torah in a year cycle. Here in Eretz Yisrael, they had a 3-year cycle, which means it took them 3 years to get through the reading of the Torah. The Torah portion reading was much, much shorter than it is, like a 2/3 shorter than it is normally for us. And that means that they only completed the cycle of reading the Torah once every 3 years. What happened on Simchat Torah Shmini Atzeres? I don't know exactly. However,
they have Shemini Atzeres, but not Simchat Torah.
Shmini Atzeres for sure there was. That's from the Torah. The question is whether there was some kind of a celebration over here or not. I don't know. In Bavel for sure there was, right? In Babylonia for sure there was, because they finished up the cycle and they started again. So there's Hallel, there's Kriyas HaTorah. Kriyas Torah, again, what are we reading over here? So all the Sefer Torah taken out. There's dancing, 7 hakafot again. Each one is preceded by certain verses that are recited. I once heard a very beautiful idea. Rav Meir Shapiro from Lublin says that the hakafot on Simchat Torah are a remembrance of Jewish. They're like Jewish history, right? We go off into Golus, we go off into exile, which is the idea of moving around in circles. But always in the center of everything we do is the Torah, which means that the Sefer Torah taken out in the middle, everybody's dancing around them. We do that 7 times, like I said before, and at the end of the hakafot, then there is Kriyas Torah. Now there is a custom that on Simchat Torah everybody gets an aliyah. Right? Everybody is called up to the Torah and they recite the brachas over the Torah. In most shuls, they send off Sefer Torah into different places in order to make sure to facilitate, if you've got a shul with a couple of hundred people in it, and they've all got to get an aliyah, so...
How do they do it here?
Same way, right? There'll be all different kinds of Sefer Torah in different corners, different rooms. The way to do it is that V'zois HaBracha, which is the final portion of the Torah, is read over and over again, just not the last part. But it's read over and over again until everybody's had an aliyah. There's even a custom that children under the age of bar mitzvah should get an aliyah as well. They should also be called up to the Torah and recite the brachas over the Torah. It's a very time-consuming. It's a very jolly time. After that, there is what you mentioned is something. The emphasis what comes before that is called Kol HaNe'orim. All the little children who are not able to recite their own bracha over the Torah are then brought to the Sefer Torah, and a talus is held up over their head, or sometimes you need a few talesim, right, like a chuppah, right, a few talesim if you've got a lot of kids over there, and the parents come underneath as well, the fathers come underneath as well, and they all recite the brachas together. And there is, of course, the age-old custom which goes back probably all the way back to the creation of the world, to throw candy at the kids and for the parents to pick it up and to try to eat it without the kids seeing it. After that, there is something called the Kassam Toy. What is Kassam Toy? Kassam Toy is a person who's going to be given the aliyah for the final reading of the V'zois HaBracha, what's called the Chazak. It tells over the story of Moshe Rabbeinu's death and the Yoshua taking over, and we say the words at the end, Chazak v'nit chazek. It's considered to be a tremendous honor to be asked to be the Bere Shit, the Chatan Torah in the Shul. And again, what happens is there's a very lengthy introduction where the Gabba, the person in charge of calling the people up to the Torah, he recites a very long paragraph, and he calls up the person to be the Chatan Torah. Again, a talus is held over his head like a chuppah, and he recites the brachas. And after the end, when he's finished, when the Torah is finished being read, so they recite the final bracha, and normally he is bombarded with candies, bottles of whiskey, all those kinds of things, right? So the Chatan Torah, after the Chatan Torah, the Sefer Torah that's been used is held up. In some communities, there is a custom to do a backwards hagbah. Right, what does that mean? You normally you lift it up like this, right? You just lift it up straight like this. However, if you cross over your hands and you lift it up, that's hopefully without the drinking. Whatever. If you've been designated to do that, then no, you should have a
clear head.
Yeah, or at least designate a
limit,
a designated driver to do this.
Well, so you have to go like that and then hold.
Right. So instead of what normally when you lift it up, what happens is that the writing is facing you, backwards, right, and then you turn around. However, when you do it that way, it's the other way around. The writing's now facing outwards, and you turn around. Whatever. If you can do it, you can do it. If you can't do it, then please don't offer. It's not a good idea. It really isn't.
You sound like you speak from personal experience.
Hey, I'm going to plead the fifth. I'm not going to answer that question.
That doesn't work here.
I am anyway. What happens after that is then something called Bere Shit. Chatam Bere Shit is the person who's been asked to get the aliyah, to be called up to the Torah for the reading of the Torah from Bere Shit. We're starting again. We never stop.
I did that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a big honor.
Thank you.
And it's something which is really it's very poignant. It really is. According to some of the authorities, the true simcha, the true joy of Simchat Torah is not that we finish the cycle of the reading of the Torah, but it's that we begin it again, which means that being Chatam Bere Shit is definitely it's a very great honor. And again, the same thing is done. There's a very lengthy introduction to call the person up to the Torah, and then a talis is held over his head, and he recites the brachas, and the first part of Bere Shit is read. What is read is the part of the part that describes the creation until the end of the first Shabbat of the creation, and then the Sefer Torah again is lifted up, and it's
repeat after certain psukim.
When you get to the end of each day, right? So when it says, that Vayer Vayivoki Yom Echad, so everybody says Vayer Vayivoki Yom Echad, that it was one day, and then the person reading the Torah recites it and then moves on to the next. Then there's Vayer Vayivoki Yom Sheni and Yom Shlishi, right? And then when you get to Vayechulu, when you get to the bit that talks about Shabbos, everybody recites it all together. Here in Israel, once you finally got to the Chatam Bere Shit and the Sefer Torah has been lifted up and put away, then there is another Sefer Torah that's read from, which is the Maftir. Maftir is going to deal with Simchat Torah. It's just going to tell you which sacrifices were brought to the temple, and it's then you finish Maftir. The Haftorah is read. After the Haftorah, again, if we're here in Eretz Yisrael, the Yearskor is recited, and then Musaf is recited.
Why having Yearskor in Simchat Torah?
Because it's the last day of Yomtov, which means that it's really Shmini Atzeret.
Sad.
Yeah, I mean the answer to that, my mother always used to ask the same question, like how can you do it? And I think the answer is that that our lives are very much intertwined, interwoven with the sad and the happy together. It's very rare. You don't have anyone who's just happy or just sad. And I think the truth is, I think it's very symbolic, this idea of being involved in the tremendous joy of Simchat Torah and being involved in the Yearskor prayer as well, just remembering those that are no longer around. However, in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, that's exactly what they do. On Shmini Atzeret, they recite the Yearskor prayer, and on Simchat Torah, they don't. They keep the two separate. There is something called Tfilat Geshem. Now, what is Tfilat Geshem? It's a prayer for rain, because what is going to happen is like this. After Sukkot, we're moving into the winter. We need rain. In the winter, it's very important. So, therefore, we have a prayer, special prayer that's recited. The chazan will get dressed up in a kittel, in a white long shirt, and again, and some of the tunes that he used will be Yom Kippur tunes. And the tefillah of Geshem, it's very, very important. For Geshem, rain is considered to be, that's our life, right? If we don't have rain.
How come we become so holy that we even put in a kittel?
I don't know. The idea is like this, because Geshem, because rain it's so fundamental. Again, well, our problem is like this. We live in very climate-controlled lives. And we don't recognize how important rain really is. Here in Israel, it's true all over the world, but here in Israel, it's especially true that without rain, we're stuck, because an awful lot of drinking water is coming through the rain that falls and is being caught in the reservoirs over here, various different places. The largest natural reservoir in Israel, of course, is the Kinneret. But there are reservoirs all over the place, aquifers down on the coastal plain. We need rain in order to exist. Our problem is, who drinks water nowadays anyway, right? So Coca-Cola and even coffee and tea. So you don't even realize you're drinking water anymore, because you put something into it and it doesn't taste like water. But without water, we are completely and absolutely stuck. And it's something which the water is given. It says one of the keys, there are 3 keys that God has, which he doesn't give out. He retains them for himself, and only he has control over them. And one of them is the key of Parnasa. And the Gemara says that Parnasa is rain. Right? If you've got an abundance of rain, you'll have an abundance of crops. Everything will grow well. Then there'll be enough for everybody to eat. Prices will be low, but people will make lots of money because there'll be such a lot of everything. And it's good. It's good for everybody. Yeah.
I thought that the prophet who revived Jonah whenever he was a kid had power over what God had given him.
It says like this. It says by Elijah. It says that he took one of the keys to revive the dead, and then when he wanted the key for the rain, God says to him, "Whoa, hold on a second, right?"
It's the other way around.
It's the other way around. I can't remember. He says, "Hold on a second." He says, "You can't be. I'm the senior partner over here, right?
Yeah.
And if I've got 3 keys, that means that I have to have 2 of them the whole time. And if you want, you can borrow one of them." So he says, "Give me that one back, and then you can take this one in return." That's what happened over there. But it's true that under normal circumstances, on the Gemara, when the Gemara says that the keys remain with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gemara is saying that he doesn't give them over to the hands of angels. Right? Part of the problem with angels is that angels do not exist in the dimension of rachamim, of compassion. Whatever needs to be done, that's what they do, right? So if somebody, if the key of rain was given over to an angel, the angel would say, "Look at the Jewish people, they don't deserve any rain, and there'll never be any rain," right? Whereas God, in His mercy, allows for a lot more flexibility, which is something that only He can do. So we daven that, and that's why it's so serious. It really is. I mean, we're talking about, you're talking about a parnasa. It's not just your parnasa. It's everybody's parnasa, right? The whole of the Jewish people. That's what we're davening for at this particular moment, and that's why it really is so incredibly important. It is it's a very, very awesome moment, some moment. It really is, and we should take it very seriously. After Musaf, that's it. Now, in many shuls over here, I don't know what happens. I haven't been in Chutz La'aretz. I haven't been outside of Israel for Simchat Torah for decades, but many shuls over here on Simchat Torah, because davening is so long, by the time Musaf is over, they normally just daven mincha straight away, right? Because it's the afternoon already, and it saves you having to come back again to go home and come back again to shul. It's not a problem if you've made kiddush at some point during the day, which you really should do. If davening is going to go on for a long time, then it's okay to do that. And then you go home and you have a suda, you have your meal. And here in Israel, that's it. At the end, that you go afterwards. You go back to shul. You pray the evening service. You recite Havdalah, and Sukkot is now over, and you can take your sukkah down.
What about
and
Yisroel Hag?
Yisroel Hag. We'll talk about that in a second. Outside of Israel, or for people who are not living in Israel but they're here for Yomtov, so they're keeping 2 days, which means that they go back for Ma'ariv when they daven the evening service. They're davening the Yomtov davening. It's not the regular day anymore.
It must be so hard to find a minyan that does that in Israel.
The truth is that it depends where you are, but here in Yerushalayim, for example, there are plenty of places where you can get what's called a Yomtov Sheni minyan. And for example, where I live in Hanof, there are at least 4 or 5 that I know of, because there's lots of people that are here. Yeah, they come visiting. Here in the yeshiva, of course, they have up the road, all over. Anywhere where you've got a non-Israeli or contingent, then you're going to have people who are going to be keeping 2 days, and it's pretty. Again, depends where you are. It's pretty easy to find a minyan, but you come back, and then you've got now Simchat Torah begins. So everything that I've just described is now going to take place on Simchat Torah night for people who are not living in Israel. They come, you daven, you've got the hakafot, the Sefer Torah then put back, one of them is taken out and read from, go home, you have your suda, you have your meal, the next morning, whole thing all over again, right exactly the way they've described it, and then at the end of all of that, Yomtov comes to an end for everybody. It's now finally over. Rabbi Moshe mentioned something called Yearskor Chag. Yearskor Chag is an interesting day. It's the day after Yomtov here in Israel is a day which has got a residue of some kind of kedusha to it, some kind of holiness to it. The origins is really that it's inconceivable that you can have Jews who are keeping Yomtov, for them it's the second day of Yomtov, right? So it's inconsistent. We have Jews keeping Yomtov, and for everybody else it's just a regular, normal day. So there's something called Isru Chag. Isru Chag doesn't have a very great ramification. You can do everything on Isru Chag. You can drive and you can ride and you can go to work and you can use money if you have any, right? And the only thing on Isru Chag is that you don't recite Tachnun.
When does the Israelis start say, let's say, not Tachnun, the day an Israeli, he has the next day it says Rahat. What about for the second people?
Here, so the emphasis is like this: that there's no Isru Chag, there's no official Isru Chag in Chutz La'aretz, which means that after Yom Tov is now over, the second day of Yom Tov is finished, then there is no Isru Chag. However, on in the month of Tishrei, right, which is the month that we're in right now, which has got Sukkot in it, so from the beginning of Sukkot, from Erev Sukkot until the end of Tishrei, we don't say Tachnun anyway. Which means from the end of Sukkot until Tishrei finishes, we don't say Tachnun anyway. Nobody says Tachnun.
Well, they don't say that even after Yom Kippur either. I mean, we don't, from Yom Kippur on.
There's no Tachnun.
No. So it's really, as soon as you made tshuva, I think they do.
You do, yeah.
But a lot of places, right after Yom Kippur, they don't say Tachnun until.
Actually, it could be, but I mean, the emphasis is like this. In other communities, they stop saying Tachnun on Erev Sukkot, and then they don't. Nobody continues saying Tachnun until you get to Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. Right after Cheshvan begins, then you start saying Tachnun again. Okay, that's Tishrei. Tishrei, the busiest month of the year, the holiest month of the year, right? And then we've got, after Tishrei, we have the month of Cheshvan. Now Cheshvan, for our purposes over here, Cheshvan is a very easy month to get through because there's nothing in it. It's got nothing at all. It's called Mar Cheshvan. The word Mar, even though when I was a kid I thought Mar meant mister, but apparently it's not. Mar means bitter, and the reason why it's called Mar Cheshvan is because it doesn't have any Yomtov inside of it. There's no day in Cheshvan that's got anything in it. So, for example, Shvat. You've got Tu B'Shvat, one day at least that's considered to be more joyful than the other days. And on Cheshvan, you don't have anything like that at all. So in Cheshvan, we start off the month with Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is the regular Rosh Chodesh davening. And we move into the month of Cheshvan. There's nothing there. It's a regular day. We're beginning the winter now. The days are getting much shorter. It's getting colder. According to some opinions, the word Mar Cheshvan is coming from the rain that's going to fall, which means drops, which is, again, that's a more positive dimension to it. Whatever it is, but it's a month which doesn't have anything in it whatsoever. And we get to the end of Cheshvan, and we move into the month of Kislev. Now, Kislev, of course, is famous for what?
My birthday.
Your birthday. There you go. Right? Kislev is famous for Ben's birthday. And you know which day in Kislev it is?
The 25th.
The 25th of Kislev. You are a star. God, in his infinite wisdom and kindness, decided to give us a festival to celebrate Ben's birthday.
Yes.
Right? We call it Hanukkah, which is really just the Kabbalistic word for Ben's birthday. And
Numerically.
Numerically. Yeah, numerically taking away the number you first thought of and multiplying it by the size of your shoe and then dividing it by 0, that brings you exactly to the amount of presents that Ben is going to get. Every year?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You have a birthday every year? God.
I know.
How many of them have you had so far?
19, I think. Please go by you.
I'm pleased. I'm pleased to hear that you think that's good. Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
19, yes, gosh. When I get to be 19, I've got all kinds of plans I've got that I'd like to like to do when I get to 19.
Yeah?
Yeah. But in the meantime, I'm just working on, each day.
Like you and I think the same way.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, we all know the end. We all know the end of that one, right?
What?
And fools never differ.
I don't
Didn't
see
know
it.
that?
No,
Yeah,
it's
great
true.
minds think alike, and fools never differ. And that's what I was taught when I was growing up. We're not going to discuss which one that falls into exactly. Anyway, the month of Kislev. The month of Kislev is, we're now in the heart of the winter. It's dark. It's cold. Hopefully, over here it's now going to be very wet. Oh, you know what? There's one thing that we need to talk about in Cheshvan. Here in Israel, on Zion Cheshvan, on the 7th of Cheshvan, we start reciting the prayer for rain inside of the Amidah. The same Talomata Livracha.
Wasn't there Shabbat when it happened and then it rained and that Eid Shabbat?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Psst. All because of your prayer.
Not me personally.
Oh, please, don't be modest.
That's about December 4th.
No. It's two different things. We'll get there in a minute. It's two completely different things, which means it's 2 weeks after the end of Sukkot. The Gemara says that it took 2 weeks for the people, the foot festival, so it took 2 weeks for the pilgrims to get past the Euphrates River. And then they started praying for the rain. Why didn't they start praying for the rain straight away, which would make more sense? Because if they did that and it rained, the Euphrates River would swell and it would be very, very difficult to get across onto the other side. So what happened was that the Jewish people waited 2 weeks from the end of Sukkot to be able to get home, if not home, at least past the Euphrates, which was the most difficult thing to get past, in order to be able to get on the other side. And then they started reciting the prayer for rain. Here in Israel, we start reciting that on Zion Cheshvan, the 7th of Cheshvan. What you spoke about is something else that's very, very interesting, very fascinating idea. In Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, on the 4th or the 5th of December, they start reciting the prayer for rain inside of the Amidah, the same Talomata Livracha. Where does that come from? It's 60 days after what's called Tkufat Tevet. Now, the year is split up into 4 seasons, and this is 60 days after the onset of the season of Tevet, and subsequently over there, that's the last moment, that's when people start reciting the prayer in Chutz La'aretz outside of Israel. What makes it fascinating is it's the only date in the year that we've got that works according to the secular date, right? And not it works according to the solar system and not according to the lunar system. Why is that? Because the seasons are all solar, they all work according to the solar dates and not according to the lunar dates. There was a very fascinating period inside of Jewish history where from 2 weeks after Sukkot until the 4th or the 5th of December. Why the 4th or the 5th? It depends if it's a leap year or not. It depends on whether there's an extra day in there or not. But there was a period in history where from the second day of, from 2 weeks after Sukkot, we'll get there in a minute, from Zion Cheshvan until the 4th or the 5th of December, each community could decide when they wanted to start reciting the prayer for rain, which means over here in Israel they started straight away because here in Israel we need the rain. It's absolutely vital to our existence. And in the other communities, depending on how wet the area was that you lived in, depending on when they started to recite it, the last moment it could be recited was on the 4th or the 5th of December. At some point, not so very long ago, I think we're going back maybe just over 200 years ago, there was a consensus of opinion that outside of Israel and the immediate environs, right, the immediate countries around Israel, everyone should be reciting the same Talomata Livracha at the end of the period on the 4th or the 5th of December. I think we spoke about it briefly, but people who come from Australia, from New Zealand, on the southern hemisphere where everything is back to front, or maybe we're back to front, I don't know, but whatever, however you want to look at it, something is back to front somewhere, right? So over there, they recite the prayer for rain at exactly the same time that we recite the prayer for rain, because the prayer for rain, even though each person's reciting it in their own country, the real kavanah, the real intent for the prayer should be for over here in Israel. Right, over here in Israel, we need the rain. We need it very, very badly. And I would imagine the reason that it's not raining today is because you people obviously didn't pray properly this morning.
Sorry.
Guilty as charged.
Thank you. If you're wondering how I might have reached that conclusion, I'm not going to tell you.
They give you a dossier on whether we did shachrit or not.
Yeah. It's like an electronic scoreboard up. That's, could take a look and see what's going on. So that's it. That's the that's Cheshvan. That's the month of Cheshvan. Kislev. So aside from being the month that's got Ben's birthday in it, which of course is a tremendously important moment in Jewish history, and something that has been celebrated in preparation for years and years. So in Kislev, nothing happens very much until we get to the 25th of Kislev. On the 25th of Kislev, aside from Ben's birthday, we're celebrating something called Hanukkah. Now, what is Hanukkah? As everybody here knows, we went through it not very long ago. What is Hanukkah? Hanukkah is the commemoration of a bunch of weedy yeshiva bochrim who went to war against the mightiest warmongers in the world at the time, the Greek Empire, and they won. Much to everybody's shock, including perhaps their own. They won the war. It was a bunch of Kohanim, a bunch of priests. They went to war against the mighty Greek army, and they rededicated the temple. The Ramban Nachmanides says that what makes Hanukkah so incredibly unique is that it's the first and last time in history that the Jewish people went to war in order to be able to learn Torah. Normally, we have to go to war in order to save our physical beings, right? People are trying to kill us. The Greeks were very different. The Greeks they didn't want to kill the Jews. They really didn't. What the Greeks wanted to do was that they wanted to kill Judaism. And they wanted to water it down enough that the Jews could feel some kind of ethnic connection to their culture, but that they would be overwhelmingly leaning towards Greek culture instead. That was the way that the Greek Empire worked. It was very successful. They introduced Greek culture into all the different countries they went to. They didn't impose their way of life on exactly, but they wanted people to absorb some of it, and as the more they absorbed, the less connected they were to their own culture. And at that point, it helps the empire be very stable. Right? If you don't have people rebelling all over the place, then obviously it's a time of prosperity. The Jews, of course, were revolting, as Jews tend to be. That got no reaction whatsoever. That's pretty sad. Okay.
I'm waiting for that.
We don't rebel. What are you talking about?
Oh, you're just revolting.
We don't revolt.
We don't revolt.
I'm not sure what reaction was the expected reaction. If you tell me, I will retroactively react in the way you expected.
I don't know, like a wry smile, perhaps? Okay, good, thank you. Now we can move on. Now that's been taken care of, we can move on. The importance of Hanukkah is not the physical battle that took place. The importance of Hanukkah is the rededication of the temple, the lighting of the menorah inside of the temple. That was the first thing that they dedicated once they overtook the temple again. And that's what we commemorate. There was a tremendous miracle that took place where one little flask of oil lasted for 8 days, even though it was supposed to last only for 1 day. There's a whole series of different opinions as to why we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days. If the flask of oil was supposed to last for 1 day anyway, maybe we should celebrate it from the 26th of Kislev for 7 days rather than on the 25th for 8 days. There's a whole series of different answers over there. The most basic dimension, of course, of the number 8 inside of Judaism revolves around the supernatural. 7 is nature. 7 is a natural cycle. Number 8 is something what's called Lamala min hateva. It's beyond nature. The victory of the Jews against the Greeks was something which was truly beyond nature. And subsequently, we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days. As everybody is familiar, we went through the halachas where, just before Hanukkah a few months ago, but you light one light on the first night and then 2 lights on the second night and 3 lights on the third until you get to the 8th night, when on the 8th night you light how many?
7.
Wow. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
quick. Yeah, that was good. No, well done. Thank
no,
you.
I was thinking about like the Order Menorahs. They didn't have 8.
No, they had 6.
They had 6, right?
In the which menorah? In the menorah in the temple had 7, which
7.
means it had a center, and then it had
Yeah.
3 coming off on each side to make 7. And the menorah in the temple actually was symbolic of. It really has nothing to do with Hanukkah. Actually, it's just the fact that they lit the menorah, which is why we light our menorah. But that's symbolic of all the different dimensions of knowledge that exist inside of Judaism. Different branches of knowledge that come out from the middle. The middle represents the Torah itself. The other 6 come out representing different dimensions. It's all very Kabbalistic. It's a very beautiful idea, the idea of light and clarity and knowledge, which apparently we don't seem to have very much of in here. Good. Okay. Okay, so I think we're going to stop over here, B'ez Hashem. Tomorrow we'll finish up a little bit of Hanukkah, and then we've got to start getting ready for
Purim.
You're always getting ready for Purim, no? Got to get your alcohol tolerance up, right? For sure.